Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Judd, joined with our weather intern, soon to be meteorologist Rachel Grant. Thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Nate at 8. We've been tracking some showers and thunderstorms in the area, and things have quieted down, but not quite out of the woods yet.
No, not yet.
Not quite out of the woods yet. We're going to be tracking some more rain moving back into the area. So without further ado, let's jump into this edition of Nate at 8. Rain chances linger. So while we will likely see rain chances lower overnight, they're going to pick back up as we go throughout the week. And on a daily basis, there's at least a chance of rain. So at least a chance on a daily basis as we go through this weekend. After today, not as hot likely for most of this week, but it does remain humid. So, these temperatures are falling back further into the 80s tomorrow. We are not around 90 like what we were for today, but it is just generally a humid stretch of weather as we go through the weekend. And we'll talk about then our severe thunderstorm flooding potential that we'll have with those rain chances as we go throughout the week as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about for this edition of Nate at 8. Let's jump into things, shall we? And looking at live radar, like I mentioned, most of us, it's quiet. We're not dealing with a whole lot of precipitation for most of the area, but really the area to watch for right now is going to be locations that are more south of I-70. Still could pick up another shower along north of I-70. We're seeing that now in Muskingum County near Zanesville, but really the area to watch is going to be more south of I-70 at this point as we go throughout this evening. Is that where we're going to be seeing a higher concentration of these showers and thunderstorms. And we're even tracking that thunderstorm moving out of locations there in Morgan as well as Athens.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of strong thunderstorms just near Noble and Monroe County, even though they're not necessarily in those counties yet. It's looking like it's heading their way in the next couple of hours. You're seeing that flash flood warning in Athens issued until 10:30 tonight. Hopefully, it looks like it's a lot of rain, but hopefully it's not that bad in Athens. But we're seeing that moving in closer to Noble and Monroe County. Hopefully it won't go near Tyler and Wetzel County, but we're seeing some heavy rain coming through in the next couple of hours there.
Yeah, we're going to see what was a really intense storm moving out of areas there near just east of Hocking Hills and Hocking County and impacting areas around Athens, Morgan, Perry County. And if we were to just rewind this a little bit more, showing that intensity of this, even if we go past the past couple of hours, you could see just the intensity of that really just taking off. That was an intense thunderstorm there over portions of Athens and Morgan County. And now since this weekend as it progressed further to the east, but still getting some of these heavy downpours. And certainly Rachel and I were talking about just the intensity of this was the lightning. I mean, just a lot of lightning with this. Again, I know now that it's weekend, not nearly as much, but check out how much lightning that this had earlier when this was much of a stronger storm. And we were looking at lightning strikes, if we were to go back, that were in excess of 300 and even in excess of 400 lightning strikes with that storm. Just an intense light show with that storm impacting those areas. Again, I know weakened since, but certainly was an intense thunderstorm moving out of those locations, and just now starting to move into locations that are into more of the very southern part of Noble County, and getting some cells developing out ahead of that as well. Some heavier showers developing now into portions of Monroe, as well as into portions of Tyler and Wetzel County. So that's the area to watch. We'll be watching for that potential, unfortunately, for not only strong to severe thunderstorm, but the potential for some localized flooding as well. So both of those impacts are unfortunately still on the table. And again, where to watch for that: south of I-70, more specifically, be watching Noble, Monroe, Tyler, Wetzel, Marshall County, mainly southern Marshall County. Those are the areas to watch here over the next couple of hours for that potential for localized flooding. And then behind that, possibly that potential for a strong severe thunderstorm. If any storm does become severe, the primary concern is going to be damaging winds. That's going to be the primary concern. Not a high tornado risk, but we can have some high winds if that storm does mature enough to become severe. So before we get to some further graphics, let's catch up on some comments for this evening. Joe joining us this evening on Facebook. Good evening. Also joining us on YouTube this evening, saying good evening, Nate and Rachel. Hope you guys had a great 4th of July weekend. Thank you, Austin. Thanks for tuning in. I want to give all hopes and prayers for everyone that was affected by a horrible flood this weekend in Texas. It was horrendous to see, just absolutely heartbreaking, those affected from that in Texas. That is for sure. And yes, certainly our thoughts and prayers are with those that were affected by that in Texas. Lola, good evening. Humidity has been a beast. You're not kidding, Lola. And unfortunately, there's just not much relief in sight here throughout this week. Glad the temperatures are lower this week. Prayer for all those being affected. Yes, absolutely. Prayers to those being affected by that in Texas. And yeah, thankfully, at least the temperatures are not as high as what they were for today for most of the week. We'll get to that in a minute with the temperatures. But yes, for most of the week, not as hot, but is certainly still rather humid throughout the stretch. And so that being said, we felt the amount of moisture present in the air. I mean, it was just unbearably humid. A lot for these storms to tap into, and that yields some torrential downpours. And you deal with those downpours occurring round after round over the same location. And as you can see, we're with radar estimated rainfall over the past 3 hours. Some spots picked up quite a bit of rain. We saw that into portions of Columbiana County. Thankfully, the storms did progress fast enough that we did not see a flash flood warning. I was worried about that earlier if you joined the 5 and 6, but thankfully it progressed fast enough. In fact, a storm moved back into the area actually weakened some as well. So both in combination, that thankfully did not prompt a flash flood warning, but nonetheless, still a lot of rain fell there. More in the central portion near Lisbon, Rogers, just south of Unity, near Unity as well, more into that central and northeastern portion of Columbiana County, north of East Liverpool and south of Salem in Columbiana County. And another area that we were watching, Rachel, that you were watching closely this evening as well, occurring in Wetzel County.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of rain in Wetzel County, just under 2 inches. And we're glad that, like we saw earlier today, it did move out rather quickly. So even though it's just under 2 inches, we're glad that I don't think any flash flood warnings or watches were issued there.
Yeah, thankfully, no. Thankfully not. Yeah, thankfully progressing fast enough out of the area. Still, producing torrential downpours and a lot of rain fast, but thankfully, not quite reaching that extent. Flash flood guidance is closer to 2 inches. 2 inches plus. That's even over the course of 3 hours. But thankfully, over the last 3 hours, locations just under that threshold, but very close. So, we are still going to be monitoring those storms moving back in for locations south of I-70. The issue is not necessarily a single storm, right? But it's more of that if you deal with that storm and there's another one right behind it, then the flash flooding concerns will rise. So that's the scenario, the setup that we have for this evening. Not necessarily a single storm, but that storm and then another storm moving back in behind it is what we're watched for. And again, the area of concern now for this evening to watch is south of I-70, more Noble, Monroe, Tyler, Wetzel, Southern Marshall. Those are the counties, the areas I'd be watching as we go throughout this evening. And we're going to keep a very close eye on it this evening as well. So storm reports coming in did have wind damage reported out of Columbiana County. A severe thunderstorm warning was issued there earlier. Again, no flash flood warning, but we did have a severe thunderstorm warning report coming out of Lisbon. Just a high wind potential. Unfortunately, it came to fruition, and we can see that with some of these stronger to severe thunderstorms in our area. Reported multiple wires down in the area. Time estimated based on radar, 5:26 p.m. So earlier, if you joined us at the 5 and 6, we were tracking a severe thunderstorm moving through Columbiana County. Our one storm report coming in so far for this evening of wind damage. And when it comes to flood reports, well, thankfully, none for our area. Thankfully, no flood reports coming in so far for this evening. But again, we'll continue to monitor both of those going throughout this evening. So what is causing these showers and thunderstorms? Well, the cold front that's dropping into our area, and the issue for this week that arises is the fact that as this front drops into the area, it's just going to linger over us. So it's not going to continue to push south out of our region. It's just lingering near us. So as this lingers near us, we get stationary boundaries. So as this boundary just lingers over the region, we maintain these daily chances for some showers and thunderstorms. Now, that being said, it's not likely every day that we'll be picking up rain, but that potential is certainly there. Anywhere from just an isolated shower and thunderstorm to a few showers and thunderstorms are possible during this stretch. So that's our rain chance that we have. Again, at least a chance on a daily basis. Now, I think the next chance where it's more likely that we'll deal with more scattered to even possibly numerous showers and thunderstorms, that would likely hold off until Sunday. But, up until that point, that chance is there every single day for at least a shower and thunderstorm in our region. And it is overall a pretty unsettled weather pattern, although precipitation for a lot of it does remain very hit or miss. Still a pretty unsettled weather pattern that we are likely in through the remainder of this week and going into the weekend as well. Now, in terms of the potential for impacts, I think we still have to watch, with activity, a lot of this activity remaining more isolated. It does help, lower the overall risk for any flooding concerns. In terms of any severe weather concerns, if we do see a storm mature to become strong to severe, then the high wind gusts would still be the primary concern. So it's something we'll still unfortunately have to likely monitor on a daily basis, but it does not look like a high risk scenario. It doesn't look like that risk is high to be dealing with flooding or severe weather, but it is one of those situations where it will probably have to monitor for both of those on a daily basis as we do extend into the weekend. And the overall risk could increase a bit more once we start to see the coverage increase as well going into Sunday. But something we'll continue to monitor as we go throughout the week. But that being said, it's still a pretty humid stretch. But Rachel, thankfully, the temperature at least lowering a bit.
Just a little bit, not
just
for
a little
bit.
Not a big cool down though, right?
Yeah,
not a big
with
cool
the
down.
cold front coming through today, we're going to notice a difference tomorrow. We're seeing that high of 83, so just a bit of relief today from that high of 88. But we're seeing that turning that into a stationary front by Wednesday, and then we'll start to notice that warm up coming up to the weekend.
Yeah, getting back closer to where we were for today. Yeah. So, but like you said, not a big cool down. I think some of us are ready for the 70s and maybe what if we got a high in the 60s? That would be great. Some of us would be really, really loving that about now. But yeah, it's a little bit of a cool down, but not a great cool down. That's for sure. Coming our way. Before we go, let's catch up on some more comments here. Trevor joining us. Good evening. Joining us on Facebook this evening. Douglas, good evening from Moundsville. Good evening there, Douglas. Thanks for joining us. Joshua Grant, Nate, and Rachel, thank you for keeping us informed about the rain amounts and flooding. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
Do you know a Joshua Grant?
I do.
You do? Okay. Austin, rain is just now hitting Wetzel County. The wind is starting to pick up as well. Thanks for the report there, Austin. I appreciate it. Good evening from Yorksville. Good evening there, Sean. Thanks for joining us this evening. Raining off and on in Wetzel County. No wind, Sandy is reporting. And yeah, those joining us from Wetzel County, it's, the rain can start to pick up. And that's one of those areas, again, if you're tuning in from Wetzel County, unfortunately, that is one of the locations where we do have to watch. We do have to watch as we go. Still, at least over the next couple of hours, there is that potential that we could be dealing with some flooding concerns for those areas. And if those storms do continue to mature, then possibly even a strong, severe thunderstorm. So, but right now, I'd certainly still be at least watching for the potential for flooding concerns in that area, as where can get more of a training effect of the rounds of some heavy rain that can yield some flooding concerns for those areas south of I-70 in our region throughout this evening. Austin saying, I want to answer your question for Thursday. I think I remember that, Austin, you mentioned you were seeing a snake while mowing. And I believe I asked what snake it was. And he said a black snake. It didn't see the head, only the tail, but a black, maybe a black garden snake, maybe one of those. Nonetheless, not a pleasant sight to see while mowing. But thanks for getting back to me, Austin. I appreciate that. Thank you. Dan, hello. And thank you, no rain in Hancock County, Carol says. And yeah, things are really quiet for locations along, especially north of I-70. Did have in Columbiana County, especially earlier, it's quite active, but things really quieting down for those locations going throughout this evening. And there's not a whole lot of rain likely left. Maybe it's sneaking in another shower or two for those areas along north of I-70, but your rain chances are really starting to fall off now at this point, likely as we go throughout the night. So our high temperatures do thankfully drop at least some, but the humidity, just probably doesn't drop much. It's still just a very humid stretch of weather. It is unbearably humid for this evening. I do think we can get back more upper 60s, mid 60s, possibly at the lowest this week. But you're still in that range where it's just uncomfortably humid. So it does look like maybe we can get out of the unbearably humid range, but still just uncomfortably humid likely all week long. Unfortunately, no comfortable, refreshing air is in sight. During that stretch, still warm. Not as hot as today, but still warm and uncomfortably humid. And the humidity just not letting up its grip much at all. It just has been a humid stretch really since the latter part of June, and it's just been not much relief since then, continuing now through that first week of July. And unfortunately, even going into the middle of this month, going throughout this week, there's just not much relief at all in sight with that humidity. Still just an uncomfortably humid stretch of weather that will likely be in place. So to jump into your 9+1 day forecast and sum things up as we go throughout the next 10 days, again, taking us into the middle of the month. As we go over the next couple of days, we have the potential for an isolated shower and thunderstorm, a few showers and thunderstorms possible then going into the weekend. Again, coverage overall likely during the stretch is more hit or miss, but there is a potential on a daily basis to see a shower and thunderstorm. And it's hard to pinpoint, exactly what location can see that thunderstorm this time of the year. It's really an impossible task to pinpoint a specific location, but it is in general much more hit or miss. So depending on how lucky or unlucky you are, however you want to look at it, is will determine then how many rounds of rain you'll see likely from this point after this evening going into the weekend. Now, by Sunday, I think is when it's less hit or miss and more hit. It can still be scattered, but I think there will be more showers and thunderstorms. A greater coverage Sunday, likely with respect to what we're going to see on a daily basis tomorrow going into the weekend. And then rain chances do look to lower early next week, and that's when temperatures can further pick up. We can get back near 90. It still looks like a rather humid stretch of weather. It doesn't look like the humidity is really lowering much at all early next week as those temperatures pick back up. So it can start to feel well in the 90s again, then going into the middle to early part of next week. So the temperatures can pick back up and we can deal with another hot and humid day, if not a couple of days at least, looking ahead going into the middle of next week. Lola says this heat took out my central air. It needs to slow its heat wave. I'm sorry to hear that, Lola. That's terrible. Hopefully they can get out and get that fixed soon for her. That's terrible to hear. It's awful. Not a good time to lose it. That's for sure. And yeah, these AC systems, they're just working overtime right now. Unfortunately, just been not much relief that's been in place. And again, unfortunately, there's just not much either. I mean, it is technically cooler with respect to today, but just not a big cool down in sight for this week, unfortunately. Margaret saying thanks for the update. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Nate at 8. So before we jump off here, we can go back and look up updated situation on where we stand. We've been tracking, again, some showers and thunderstorms moving back into the area. Things are still, have been quiet really for locations more along north of I-70. But we are watching then for these areas of thunderstorms that, as you can see, again, just fairly quiet along north of I-70. There's that potential for shower. It's moving back in through Muskingum. It moved back into Guernsey County. It's still possible to spot a shower continuing along north of I-70, but the bulk of activity now, and especially the area to watch, is going to be locations south of I-70. And so we're watching for those locations in southern Noble right now and more southern Monroe. These are going to be some showers and thunderstorms that are going to be tracking through these areas. And thankfully, what we did see develop here, Rachel, in Monroe County, really not gaining too much steam, which is good because that round of heavy rain after round of heavy rain would not be a good sight. But thankfully, not gaining too much steam, but still that storm into southern Noble, the remnants of what was a real intense storm back towards Athens.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of lightning strikes like we saw earlier. So it's definitely dying down, but still there. Yeah. Still a minor thing to consider this evening, but I don't think anything too terrible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, thankfully nothing that's really imminent that's a threat, thankfully, coming our way. Just if this were to be more intense, these storms that we're seeing into Monroe County, if these were to be much more intense, if these were gaining a lot more steam out ahead of this area of certainly more intense rain with this storm, this back into southern Noble. If we were to see this gain more steam and start to produce some heavier downpours, that would be then a concern for flooding, because you would deal with that heavy downpour, and then there's that second batch of rain as well. So this would then raise the alarm for flooding concerns. These are, again, moving to the east. So we'll still watch this. This could still gain a little more steam. Right now it's not, but the next few scans, if this does start to intensify and starts to become a stronger thunderstorm producing those torrential downpours, that in addition to a round of rain behind it, and then I think the overall thing to watch really at this point would be that potential for flooding. Again, as it stands now, likely not going to produce flooding the way it is, but if this does gain some more strength and does become a stronger thunderstorm, then that would be something to watch very closely in terms of what radar is estimating for those rainfall amounts. Again, coming out of southern Noble, impacting more of southern Monroe, south of Woodsfield, and then moving towards New Martinsville. If you just kind of draw that line through southern Noble, southern Monroe, and then east through New Martinsville, and then further east through Wetzel County. So that's what the areas really to watch for at this point. Just that, storm after storm, right? If this gains some more strength, there's the first storm, and there's the one moving in behind it. So it's more of what we call the training effect. So it's just dealing with that storm after storm over the same locations. So that is the one thing to watch for at this point. These are the areas, again, we'll continue to closely monitor, but thankfully nothing that is threatening imminently, right? There's no flash flood warning, severe thunderstorm warning in effect right now, but it is just something to watch for. So if you're tuning in from these areas, again, southern Noble, Monroe, and then looking into areas around New Martinsville, north of Middlebourne and Tyler County, and then looking further east into Wetzel County, east of New Martinsville towards 100 and just south of 100. These would be the areas to watch as this continues to progress further towards the east. Again, nothing that's an imminent threat right now, but it's just something that this is certainly the area we're going to be watching, and just keep weather aware. If you're tuning in from these areas, download the Severe Weather T9 mobile app. If any warnings were happen to be issued from this, then you'll be the first to know with that going off on your mobile phone and be able to get that warning and take action if need be, for dealing with a severe thunderstorm warning or a flash flood warning. Also saying not looking forward to what's about to hit Wetzel this evening, and hopefully also not too bad. Hopefully it doesn't get too bad from what's moving back into Wetzel County. Thanks for the update. You're welcome, Ella. Thanks for joining us. And Becky says no rain in Paden City. Becky says no rain in Paden City. Thanks for the report there, or maybe wishing no rain in Paden City, Becky, this evening. When is your next update? So we're going to be back tomorrow evening, Carol, the next edition of Nate 8 tomorrow evening. And of course, you can catch me before tomorrow evening outside of Facebook on air on WTOV9 at 11 o'clock, News with News 9 Tonight, and on Fox 9 an hour early before that at 10 o'clock. So on Fox 9 at 10 o'clock, on WTOV9 at 11 o'clock is when you can catch me coming up with those updates with the news tonight. And you can, as always, follow social media, Nathan Shutt News 9, in Shutt WTOV if you have X. If you're joining us on YouTube and maybe don't have Facebook, then you can jump over if you have X, or I always want to keep calling it Twitter, but it's actually X now. You can join. We'll be posting some updates as well throughout the evening on social media. Ella says stormy good in Marion, PA, Point Marion, PA. Thank you for the report there, Ella. And thank you all for tuning in and joining us for this edition of Nate at 8. Hopefully everyone is able to stay cool, Rachel. It's a tough task this when it is, but and I'm so sorry to hear Lola with that AC going bad. That's so terrible. Hopefully they can get that fixed here shortly, because it's just relentless. This heat and humidity has just been,
we're not catching a break anytime soon.
Unfortunately, unfortunately not. And we'll deal with those daily rain chances for at least a shower and thunderstorms. So make sure to stay tuned with the latest. We'll bring you updates as we go throughout the week where we stand. Again, thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Nate at 8. Catch me again coming up, News 9 at 10 on Fox 9, News 9 tonight at 11 for the latest. And as always, you can join us on the next edition of Nate at 8 tomorrow evening. Until then, have a great night.